Mirka was the most ordinary cat from the village. Her current owners took her from their neighbors with the intention that she would catch mice and, at the same time, help little Grandma Alina recover a bit. Grandma was suffering greatly from joint problems, and there was absolutely no one to take care of the house. Additionally, little Masha needed constant supervision, as the girl's mother was almost always many kilometers away from home. Grandma Alina was a woman with a strong character. At 40, she did not look old, but the difficulties life threw at her left their mark, making her appear older. Her husband, who had already passed away, was a true tyrant. As they say, let at least our prayers help his soul in the afterlife. This man knew no mercy. He brutally beat his wife and children. Once, Alina was the village's first beauty. All the best boys dreamed of her, but her parents decided otherwise. The most suitable husband for their daughter would be Matvey, the head of the village council. Matvey was a widower raising two daughter-weather girls. No one ever found out why his first wife, still so young and full of energy, suddenly died. Matvey himself was considered a very wealthy man in the village. His estate was impressive, and money was abundant. Immediately after finishing school, Alina had to forget her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Instead of entering the institute, she was forced to marry Matvey, who was 43 years old. He was fat, pot-bellied, always smelled of alcohol and tobacco. At the graduation party, Matvey noticed Alina. Her beauty struck him to the core, and so they lived together for 22 years. During their marriage, Alina had 3 children. 2 of them, sons, had long moved to other cities, far away from this house. The eldest daughter also left her hometown. The youngest, Masha, stayed with her mother. The girl was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Her illness was a result of her father, in a fit of anger, beating pregnant Alina. The child was born prematurely, and saving her was only a miracle. Now Alina was alone taking care of her daughter, as her husband had long since died. Her thoughts were often occupied with the question, what will happen to Masha when Alina is no longer here? She couldn't find an answer and tried not to think about it too much. However, they had enough money to live on. There was enough for medications for the daughter and trips to the sanatorium. Alina understood that many lived even worse. The cat Mirka, whom they brought into the house, unexpectedly became a true healer for them. She often sits on Masha's lap, and her steady, quiet purring helps the girl cope with the pain from seizures. Masha even learned to pet Mirka. Sometimes she starts talking to the cat in her special language. This language, apart from her mother and their fluffy healer, no one could understand. A living creature with natural instincts. That's how you can describe a cat. As soon as she turned 8 months old, the first wandering period began, lasting a full 2 days. The owner tried desperately to find her, but without success. And little Masha kept crying, her heart breaking with sorrow. A city doctor was called to prescribe a sedative for the child, but everything was resolved unexpectedly. The purring cat returned home early on the 3rd day. The girl's joy was so great that even the strict mother did not scold the stray cat. And 2 months later, Mirka gave birth to 3 adorable kittens. When Mirka began to give birth, the homeowner was not at home. She was working in the garden. She called her cat, but the cat couldn't come. After all, how could she abandon her newborns? The cat diligently licked her kittens, thinking how happy the owner would be to see such cute helpers. But when the owner returned from the garden, she was not happy at all. With loud cries that she didn't need extra mouths, she scooped up the kittens with her dirty hand and threw them into a pit behind the yard, where they disposed of cowshed waste. When Mirka, having escaped from the house, reached the pit, it was all over. The kittens had died. The wailing voice of the cat pierced the village's silence. This eerie howl, filled with hopelessness and grief, made even the dogs fall silent, and the crows stopped cawing. Just a few hours earlier, she had given birth for the first time in her life to 3 healthy kittens, a gray-striped one, a black and white son, and a charming tricolor daughter who looked just like her mother. The cat had time to lick her babies, and they had tasted the most delicious thing for the first time, her milk. But now, the surface of the pit was floating with the lifeless bodies of her children, submerged in the stinking sludge. The cat looked down for a long time, her eyes filling with tears. It seemed she was ready to jump in there to die with her children, but some invisible force held her back. Giving one last look at her house, she turned around and headed toward the road outside the village. The long path ran along the roadside of the highway leading to the city. The cat walked, not knowing why. Her milk-filled nipples dripped directly onto the dust, mixing with bitter tears. Cars rushed by, but people didn't care about this lost stray cat. After walking about 10 kilometers, she moved far away from her village. It was starting to get dark, and the evening lights of the city were already twinkling on the horizon. The tired cat didn't know what was drawing her there, but she felt she had to keep going. Each step was hard. The chest ached with pain, and her paws were weakening. At some point, she sat down to rest, then tried to walk again, but her strength finally gave out. Collapsing right on the roadside, the cat fell asleep from exhaustion, forgetting everything. Andre and Tanya were returning home after a long and tiring distilling session. The couple felt a pleasant fatigue. A desire to be in their cozy apartment quickly occupied all their thoughts. However, suddenly, a motionless cat lying on the roadside caught their attention. The young parents, without much hesitation, stopped the car. They approached the animal to check if the cat was alive. They thought she might have been hit by a car, as there was not a single settlement nearby. Andre and Tanya decided to take her to a veterinary clinic. When the doctor carefully examined the cat, it turned out she had no serious injuries. He noticed that milk was leaking from her full nipples. This fact led the specialist to think that recently the cat had been taken away, or possibly even drowned her kittens. The animal needed to be rescued urgently. At that moment, the doctor's assistant remembered seeing an advertisement on one of the social networks. A local animal shelter was urgently looking for a nursing cat. At the same time, shelter volunteers reported that someone had left a box with 8 newborn kittens. These little ones needed feeding and care, and in the meantime, they were being fed through syringes. Volunteers had been searching for a suitable nursing mother for the kittens for a long time. After the call from the clinic, the volunteers quickly arrived. They carefully placed the cat in a carrier and took her to the shelter. The animal seemed indifferent to where she was being taken. Exhausted, she fell into a magical sleep. She dreamed of feeding her kittens, petting them with her soft paws, and gently kissing them. It was a dream she did not want to wake up from. But suddenly, the cat heard the thin, plaintive squeaks of the kittens. These sounds seemed to wake her up. The little ones, hungry and cold, were calling their mother. The cat stirred, opened her eyes, and looked around. Andre, Tanya, the veterinarian, and the volunteers watched her reaction, holding their breath. It seemed she momentarily forgot her condition and rushed to the box where the little kittens lay. The cat seemed to understand that these were not just any stray kittens, but those who needed her warmth and care. She immediately jumped into the box, where the kittens, eagerly pushing their noses, began to seek her nipples, from which the life-saving milk flowed. The happy mother cat watched her babies attentively. Among them, to her surprise, she recognized 3 of her own kittens. A gray-striped one, a black and white son, and an adorable tricolored daughter with paws. Her heart filled with joy, and she, as if forgetting the past, embraced them with her warm body. Now she had a family again. The cat, now named Vita, finally realized that a completely different life awaited her. She managed to survive for this by escaping from that terrible pit. Her strength was sustained only by her love for her little ones. Meanwhile, at home, Masha couldn't find peace, weeping bitterly and calling for her beloved cat. Alina, who was the cause of this misfortune, suddenly realized the horror of her actions. Mirka, their former beloved, disappeared without a trace. The woman spent almost a whole week searching for the cat at the shelter, but she was met with hostile hissing. Alina understood that bringing Masha to the shelter was the only way to ensure she saw what had happened to her friend. Now everything had changed for the better. Alina got a job at that very shelter, as a sanitary worker, but she found her place in this work. She truly enjoys taking care of animals. Moreover, she started working together with Masha. The girl, who had already learned to walk and communicate clearly, helps her mother. Although for now, both earn the same salary. Mirka, now known as Vita, never forgave Alina. She seemed to ignore her presence. However, other animals cherished the kind woman who now gives them the warmth of her hands. But with Masha, Vita's situation was different. She spends a lot of time with the girl, and their bond became special. It seems the cat even helps her in the recovery process. Friends, if this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new stories. See you soon.